All right, let's go ahead and get started. Welcome to today's session. My name is Greg Blanchard. I'm the VP of Marketing at Inntopia. As a quick reminder before we get going, this is part of what we're calling Insight 365. In the past, what we've done is a big user group that's in person, a 3-day conference. One of the things we really loved and learned from the pandemic was that a lot of people enjoyed having Insight virtually because they wouldn't have been able to attend otherwise. So this year, we're doing a hybrid. We're taking a lot of the sessions that would have been breakouts during our conference and holding those virtually throughout the year. That's the 365 part of the name. And then we're pairing that with a smaller, more intimate 2-day conference at our headquarters in Stowe. And that's happening in September 14th through 15th. Speaking of which, as of this morning, we have 21 tickets left. So if you want to join us in Stowe, now is the time to do that. But this is one of the virtual sessions, the virtual breakout sessions. And this session will be presented by Ben Day, who is the marketing director at Jetstream. Their team, I must say, is doing some really, really impressive stuff in the short-term rental space. And as you can imagine, coming off of a pandemic, they've seen a lot of stuff happen in that space during the last 2 years. Ben also has been around Inntopia for quite a while, and so he knows the space, he knows our audience really well. So if you have any questions during the session, use the question panel, and we will save those until the end and answer all those at the end of the presentation. So with that, Ben, I will pass the mic to you.
Thanks very much, Greg. And thank you for the invitation, first of all. And thanks to everybody who has logged in. We were chatting earlier, and I said, as you see the attendees click in, it was reminding me of September 28th, I think it was 2010, when our team at Whistler.com, which was the reservation office up here in Canada, switched over to Inntopia, and it was like looking for that first Inntopia booking to come through the system. So I think it was a package with some ski tickets, and we were up and off to the races. So thanks everybody for being on the presentation today. It's quite a broad audience, so we're going to dive into a couple of little things, but always please reach out. Please ask some questions in the chat. We'll try and get to some stuff. And anytime you want to reach out to me on LinkedIn or by email or the team, we're here for you at jetstreamtech.io. I've been, goodness me, I came to Canada 25 years ago to follow a dream, to go skiing, be in the mountains, go golfing, go biking, go hiking, go camping, and somehow I never left. And it's just been a fabulous time. I live in a town called Pemberton, BC, which is just north of Whistler Ski Resort, host of the 2010 Olympic Games. And I dived into sales, marketing, resort management, reservations, revenue management. Goodness knows it seems like a long time, and there's been a lot of changes in our industry. So it's been a pleasure working with the guys in Inntopia. I think I first met some Inntopia guys in about 2006 at the Mountain Travel Symposium conference down in Colorado. So it's been a while. But without further ado, I'm going to get into talking about the title, which is Capitalizing on the COVID-Driven Wave of STR. STR is short-term rental demand. So COVID came along, kicked a lot of us pretty hard, but in the resort business, I think everybody is pretty resilient, and we knuckled down and worked through it, and we saw lots of things happen. Some we maybe expected, and some took us by surprise. For short-term rentals, in COVID, what we saw was a migration from people who didn't want to be near other people, but they still really wanted to get away and take their family away and feel safe. So we actually saw short-term rentals jump out of the genie is out of the lamp, is what I called it. So many more people wanted to get away, a staycation, somewhere they could drive to, somewhere where they could pack up a hamper of food and get away, something with a bit of living space with a kitchen. They didn't necessarily want to go out and go to lots of restaurants and interact with lots of people. So there's been an enormous increase in trial, and that's a huge opportunity now for our industry in short-term rentals and resorts to convert your traditional hotel guests now to becoming vacation rental superfans. We also seen in the last few years, and I've seen this when I was running hotels is this increasing convergence of short-term rental and hotel industries as different channels, different marketplaces coming into being, one marketplace of people wanting to go somewhere nice and stay and have a good time. Booking.com lists lots and lots of vacation rentals, lists homes. Airbnb now sells hotel rooms. VRBO.com sells hotel rooms. And we're seeing these channels merge as people start to have a favorite booking channel in the OTA space. They will gravitate to the one where they have an affinity to, where they're familiar with clicking around the system, and they'll start their searching there. The third thing we saw was an explosion and acceptance of remote working. Some of that is going to change. People are going back to the office, but we are seeing a lot of companies having this hybrid model and really saying that you just have to be available and get your work done. So what people are doing now more and more, I see this in my friend group, especially the ones where their kids have left home, is that people will go away and mix a work and leisure trip, and they will log in and stay for longer, and it'll be a bit of a mix of both. The last thing that we really saw accelerated as we came out of COVID was something we've known about. I read yesterday we've known about this for 60 years. The changing labor market demographics. People have been talking about this, but it really hit us as all those staff got laid off through the pandemic. And then where did they go? They didn't come back. There's headlines about the great resignation, but people couldn't work. There was no work for them in the hospitality industry. They left and found other things to do. And as hospitalities try to recruit them back, I think there's over 1 million unfilled hospitality vacancies in the US alone this year. So it's really hard. And where the go-to was, oh goodness, we have complicated, hard, expensive technology. And then on the other hand, we have cheap and available labor that we can add into front desk at busy periods, that kind of thing. Now that it's just almost impossible to find the right staff, even if you can, to find any staff at all. So that's having an effect on the cost of labor and the availability. And certainly in multiple resorts around North America right now, you see restaurants, hotels, hospitality businesses cutting their hours and really struggling to do that. So technology is starting to switch to become a little bit more of an attractive option. Jetstream Hospitality Solutions works with resorts, hotels, short-term rental property managers, investors, and we have about 48,000 keys under management, under representation. So this is a view of what we see. I'm going to stop and shout out to a gentleman called Tom Foley, who has been a buddy of mine, works for Destimetrics, part of Inntopia. This guy is the knowledge base. Basically, don't listen too much what I say. Follow Tom on LinkedIn. Get on the Destimetrics email list, because that's going to give you a much deeper look at the markets, a real research base. But in terms of our 48,000 doors, this is what we're seeing. We're about a third US, a third Canada, and a third in Europe. And what we saw last year was a US bounce back really last summer for short-term rentals. That was a resort peak across North America, across the USA. This summer is dipping slightly. The Destimetrics email that went out, I think yesterday, said exactly this, that resorts in the West certainly are going to struggle to get to 2021 numbers for the summer. In Canada, it was probably a different story. It was still pretty tightly locked down last summer, and we've seen up here in the Canadian market a huge bounce back. Resort towns like Canmore and Banff and Whistler are really firing all cylinders. So they're kind of having what America had last summer is really jumping back in Canada in 2022. Europe, we have a lot of properties in France, the UK, Portugal, and they had a good summer last year, probably not as good as the US, a bit better than Canada, and they're kind of steady as she goes in 2021. So it's really dependent on where you are located, what part of the recovery you're in. And then now we have, lots of macro factors, global factors. there's a recession being touted, but then a lot of us have this really strong urge to travel because we haven't been able to do so for a few years. So, is it going to be the recession dragging things down for hospitality, or is that still that pent-up demand of revenge travel? So I don't know the answer to that one, but if you listen to folks like Tom and pay attention to the numbers, you're probably going to be there first as a hospitality operator and get a jump on the competition. Capitalizing on travel post-COVID, again, I mentioned this in an earlier slide. People just tried out a vacation rental during COVID, and in the huge numbers, they liked the fact that they had a living room and a kitchen, and the fact that there wasn't a restaurant downstairs. They live with that in a pandemic. I think what's a challenge is for the short-term rental industry is really to turn those trials into lifelong customers. There's a famous guy in the short-term rental industry who says it really well. He says, if I'm going on my own for 2 days or less, I'll probably end up in a hotel. If I'm taking the family or it's 3 days or more, I'm going to choose a short-term rental. So there is definitely a move towards short-term rentals. People have tried it out and they like it. And as an industry, that's on us to keep on making sure that all the things that work really well for a longer stay, things like kitchens, having some space where people can work with good Wi-Fi, having that living room space so people can sit down and relax, are really pushed to the fore in our marketing and our communications. And then things that hotels do really, really well, and I've been in the hotel industry too, the shared amenities, the food and beverage, the pool. How do you replicate some of those things if you're a private home in a short-term rental or a townhome in a resort? And that's where we're starting to see the technology come in. We have a client down in Florida who has multiple 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 bedroom homes close to Disney. Some of those homes don't have a private pool, but there's an operator down in Florida now who is like the Uber of swimming pools. So you go onto your phone, onto your app, and you go and rent 2 hours at a pool down the street in a vacation home that has a lockbox or a code on the door, and then you go in and use their pool. So it's so much technology. It's like the Uber of private swimming pool rentals. There's a company we've spoken to called Rent Mount that has monetized e-bike rentals in vacation rentals. So you invest in a couple of e-bikes, and then every time they're rented by guests, there's a charge and there's a revenue share. So you can actually add amenities, create it into a revenue stream, and then add on. So that is some really interesting things going on in the industry. So it's going to help short-term rentals and individual units be able to offer great amenities just in the way that a big hotel would. Big push for short-term rentals is to professionalize and really get to a common minimum standard so that people have confidence whether they book a home rental in Vail, a townhouse by the golf course in Florida, or a cabin in the woods in the Smoky Mountains, that you will see a basic level of cleanliness, of professionalism, and probably the biggest part of that is in the communication of really helping guests to understand what they're buying into and making it clear what is and isn't available. What we found is, and this is the micro shared economy really pushing through, is that small individual owners, small property management companies, people who are at the end of the highway like I am, can scale their business at a small scale and have the access to the technology and the systems that were previously, reserved for the big operators who had servers in the basement and lots of investment and an IT director. With the cloud and micropayments, it's so much easier to really offer some of the things that were previously reserved for the big guns, and that's where Jetstream fits into a lot of this. Who are Jetstream? We're a leading short-term rental property management platform. Market, manage, monetize is our slogan. We work with all kinds of asset owners all over the world to try and put their units forward with their best face, make sure they're managed and the guest communications are looked after, make sure the units are protected, and obviously make sure that the owners get a good return for whatever motivated them to acquire that short-term asset in the first place. We have three basic parts to our service. The first one is what I call the essential service, and there may be some people on the webinar today who have seen Airbnb and VRBO and some of the other channels that used to be called alternative accommodation. I think the alternative accommodation is now worth like $100 billion a year globally. So it's not very, it's pretty big for something that's alternative. And that's our service, is getting your property onto Airbnb, VRBO, Hopper Homes, Marriott Homes and Villas, Holiday, Homes to Go, without any extra staff resource taken up, without any extra upfront cost, and really giving your properties access to some of the new markets, getting eyeballs on your offerings, and that's a great way to add revenue by greater distribution. And quite often you'll see longer length of stays from these kind of guests, and it will also help you push up the rate and get bookings in slower seasons and in the midweek. The second part of what we do is really optimizing, making sure we have the best-in-class connectivity, content creation and management, and then finally communication. The third part is what we do now for about 15 to 20% of our business, which is the evolution into the next level of property management, of helping resorts and property managers upgrade their technology to increase revenue and reduce operating costs. I'm just going to jump into some of those. The challenge for resort owners and managers is that we can only do so much with the resources that we have. We know we have to innovate. If you want to listen to some podcasts about tech, innovation, hospitality, I could give you a list of maybe 25, of which there's probably 50 podcasts per thing. You could listen to podcasts 8 hours a day for a couple of years. You wouldn't get any work done, but you'd be very knowledgeable. So there's only so much time in the day. But we do know that if your properties are not on the right channels, then you're probably going to be leaving money on the table. When the economy is roaring along, and you don't have enough rooms and you don't have enough staff, it's easy to miss that. But once, if things start to slow down a little bit, it's going to become more competitive again. I remember 2010, 11, 12, it was really a fight to get every single guest through the door. They had lots of options. So you don't want to leave money on the table by not being in the right channels. Just to reiterate, Airbnb and VRBO are no longer nice to have sales channels. Depending on the market, these channels are probably somewhere between 5 or 10% in urban compared to the Booking.com, Expedia's, Hotels.com. In some resort markets, they're pushing 25 to 40% of the available bookings are coming through these what were once called alternative channels. And then we see in our business new channels coming, like Hopper Homes, which has got I think $5 billion of venture capital behind it. Marriott Homes and Villas is obviously a huge channel. Home to Go and Holiday a little more in Europe, but I think Marriott Bonvoy has millions, 100 plus million members of their Bonvoy rewards program, and that's a great way to cash out your points you've earned all year long as a road warrior in your corporate life, to cash them through Marriott Homes and Villas and come and stay in a really nice vacation rental. So there's some really big channels opening up. So as I said, we here at Jetstream focus on connectivity, content, and communication. We're super thrilled to connect with Inntopia. We had a one-way connection for a while, but this is what we really were hoping to get to, and we were thrilled when we were certified earlier this year. Basically, if your property can connect to Inntopia, then you guys can connect to Jetstream. So I've listed on the left, maybe there's 15 different softwares, connectivity solutions, all of which hook in one way or the other to Inntopia or into Jetstream. But we certainly can, if you can reach Inntopia, then we'd love to have a conversation with you. I've used in my history Resort Suite, Inquest, RDP, friends who've used Escapia. I know the guy from Barefoot a little bit. A friend of mine who runs his business on Maestro. SiteMinder is a big player that we have some existing partners working with SiteMinder and Inntopia, and then into Jetstream, and then those big CRS products like Synexus and Amadeus. Risalis in Europe, especially in France, is a big partner as well. So connectivity is it's complicated. It's like spaghetti. We have a guy in our team, Matt, who spends all of his time following the strands of spaghetti, making sure that the rates, availability, minimum stays, restrictions, booking coming back, currencies, taxes are all lined up so that you get good quality bookings into the system. The guests get what they were expecting, and connectivity is absolutely key. And certainly, it's a big part of our investment into the APIs and working with partners like Inntopia who really get that message too. Content. Our content team create millennial-friendly, mobile-first content. It's probably fair to say that on some of the big booking sites and some of the big hotel brands, it's a fairly vanilla flavor content offering with the same picture to represent 400 different almost identical hotel rooms. It gets kind of boring. The content is pretty stale. It's kind of baby boomer focused. So we're at Jetstream. Our staff will create custom millennial-friendly, mobile-first content based on your units, and really try and get us to the top of the visibility on all of these channels. So obviously photographs and images. We've just rolled out automated seasonal rotation. This was a big thing when I was at Whistler.com to find the sweet spot when the pictures on the website went from snowy to swimming pool, and trying to figure that out in terms of the booking window and where to put which photos when. Descriptions and amenities. And then what we have is a great team of revenue analysts and optimization managers who get in deep into the analytics. How many views did I get on booking.com last month? How many did I get on Airbnb? What was the kind of first page percentage? Is there lots of supply in the market? Am I getting my fair share? So really diving into that and automating that so that we can see the signals that the market is sending us. Third part of what we do, and this is I think our CEO describes this as our secret sauce, is our 24/7 multilingual guest communications team. We're not a software tool. We're a solution that really helps add value to your properties and drive revenue. So Airbnb is a little bit notorious for being quite guest communication heavy. It comes from the old home away days where it was a sort of a request response conversation. There was quite a long courtship between seeing a picture of a nice house on a website and actually sending the money order to the owner and hoping that everything was going to be real. It's changed a lot now with Instant Book, but there's still a fair overhead of, can I bring my dog? Can I do this? Are sheets included? Can we bring extra children? Will you do me a deal? There's that kind of mentality of negotiation. What we do at Jetstream, which really I think helps us to keep our clients, is we take care of all of that first line back and forth for reservation inquiry, guest questions, check-in information, all the way through to guest reviews, making sure they've got into their unit okay, a follow-up on check-in, and responding to all reviews. Airbnb especially have some pretty tight guidelines about the speed and quality of communication back and forth. And so our team is 24/7 located in North America, Europe, and the Philippines, all of our own employees, and they They are tasked with staying right on top of that, so you get the best possible review scores and the best ratings, which then gets you to the top of the list in the search results and more eyeballs on your listings. The thing that we've started to do just in the last 2 years is work with a number of really kind of progressive owners and managers with evolving resorts and property management companies to keep up with the competition. I'm just going to give you a flavor of what some of our clients do, and this is where we provide what we call our exclusive full service. So we do all of the guest communication, all of the distribution to every channel, a super fast direct booking website, and really do everything as a white label service underneath the owner's brand. We have clients now, resort operators and property managers, who are bringing business models to the table that essentially reduce operations costs by 40% and then are increasing revenue by, anything from 20 to 50%. One of the things is that sometimes legacy operators have their systems, have their capital investment, and it's quite hard to move quickly. And what we're seeing is a real influx with the real estate market of young, hungry, short-term rental operators who are, the cost of real estate is really forcing them to reduce their operation costs and make sure that they're full as often as possible at the highest possible rate. So we might see some legacy operators coming under pressure to defend their margins and models as these new people enter the market. So just as some examples, what we now have with some of our clients is multi-channel distribution with 24/7 dynamic pricing, automated pricing, and messaging that increases upsell and direct booking. So really what that is doing is getting as many eyeballs onto their listings with this sweet spot in the pricing, looking at updating rates 365 days into the future with as many as 15 to 20 tweaks as we see bookings coming into the market and responding to future demand signals and also the history of what's been coming through in terms of new reservations. In terms of reducing operating costs, doing as much automated in advance. We had our staff party at the beach, and sure enough, the Uber guy on the e-bike turns up with 6 pizzas. It's all done in advance. There's no cash, there's no payment, there's no worries about security, and that kind of technology and mindset is starting to come into the rental business. So guest screening, payment processing, damage deposits, check-in, all automated, so that the front desk costs or check-in costs are reduced, immensely, so that people can go straight to their unit. And I think that's one of the things we saw in the pandemic was people actually, after 5 hours in the car with the kids, would love to have a confident method to enter their unit, and they don't really necessarily want to stand in line for 20 minutes to fill out a form they filled in online 3 times, give out a credit card and a driving license, and then given a plastic key that may or may not work when they get to the 5th floor. So there's certainly lots of optimization going on in that part of the industry, and that is starting to move from short-term rentals into the hotel industry now. We're seeing that a lot of small hotel operators and owners are trying to automate and do as much stuff before arrival electronically. One of the things when we talk to the asset owners is, are you protecting my unit? Asset protection is critical. The operator is wanting to reduce cost, get as much nightly revenue, but the asset owner is looking after their $1, $2, $10, $20 million investment. So we really invested heavily in asset protection, including liability and damage protection, noise monitoring, guest screening, so we know exactly who the guests are. They've been onto the app and done a facial check, an identity check, sometimes a credit check, so we have high confidence they are who they say they are. What that allows is to trigger some asset protection up to $1.5 million for guest liability and damage protection. So it's really closing the loop and then making sure. I remember being at a Big Bear about 15 years ago at I think it was an Inntopia event, and it was interesting to see them on the news last year that the town of Big Bear is actually giving a discount on short-term rental permits for hosts who put in noise and party monitoring, so that if there's a little bit of noise, it is detected all within the legal bounds. It's not recording anything, so that our guest service teams can then send a polite email followed by a not so polite text message, followed by a phone call, followed by an escalation, and that's all managed through our 24/7 call center. This is a picture of what it looks like if there's anyone still left on the call. The best thing to do is give us a call and we can talk through that. We have our supply on the left, service departments, resorts, properties, and homeowners. All that technical spaghetti is the second thing in. TravelClick, Inntopia, the Jetstream solution and team sit in the middle, and then out off on the right-hand side is all the places that people can potentially come to book a room, including your own direct booking website under your own brand. And that is me done, and I'm ready if there's any questions. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope that's added a little bit of value to your day today.
Thanks so much, Ben. There is a question, and it's just, I mean, you've talked about a lot of different aspects of what you do or can do. The question is just, from an Inntopia user perspective, do you work with Inntopia users already? And if so, kind of what does that relationship look like for a resort or a brand like that?
The way we work with Inntopia users is Inntopia, ever since we wrote some APIs back at Whistler.com in 2009, 2010, has been a really solid technical platform. So we're really leveraging some of the work that Inntopia has done over the years to get into that connectivity. So for a lot of property managers, the Inntopia is a facilitator of the connectivity. We work very closely, our tech team with the Inntopia tech team, and then into whichever property management system. So try and put that into a bit of context. We've got a great client in the Canadian Rockies in Canmore. They're using some software from Inquest, I think Boommaster. I think I've used that in a previous life. Their best path to get to Airbnb, VRBO, Hopper Homes, and some of these people is to actually come through Inntopia and then hop their rates and availability data over into Jetstream. We'll do that content curation, 24/7 service, and the distribution onto those channels, and then the bookings come flowing back into their PMS, and they don't have to hire extra staff. They don't have to worry about managing listing quality and all of that stuff, and it really reaches out a little bit further. We have a client in Cyprus, which is an interesting one. They have a connection to Inntopia from SiteMinder, so that's their channel management software, and then they're going to start coming through to Jetstream from Inntopia. So it's kind of there's lots of hops, as I said in the earlier slide. It's a fair bit of spaghetti, and that's why we invest so much money in our technical team and our support teams to really make sure that those bookings do come through in the right currency, the right rate, the right taxes. In Airbnb, there are lots and lots of hurdles. You can find yourself getting double taxed with the Airbnb sending money to the government, the hotel sending money to the government, people sending half or not enough. And we've got quite an expert accounting team who can take you through the maze of state and state, federal, city taxes, and make sure that the tax is flowing to all the right people at all the right time, and you're not paying it twice. And that's been a really good learning curve, because I think every single jurisdiction in North America does it slightly differently. So yeah, it's for an Inntopia user, it's really a question of, I'm struggling to get onto Airbnb, VRBO, some of these other channels in that phase one. Is there an easy solution? Could I get my 50-room boutique hotel in my resort town or next to the golf course up and running on these channels in probably 4 to 6 weeks? And the answer is yes. Do I need to have a whole ton of extra people answering questions about pet friendly and checkout times? No. And then the last piece is there going to be someone who can talk to me politely, to talk to my guests and represent my brand in a good way?
Awesome, thank you. We actually did get one more question And you talked about the kind of spaghetti bowl of all these things interconnecting. And I think this is just looking for some clarification on one point of this. But the question is, if you view yourself as an Airbnb competitor or just an intermediary in that relationship.
I think we're sit in the technology stack. One of the things that a lot of people in short term are saying is that if you're just on Airbnb, really you're working for Airbnb for free, hopefully that your commission is going to be beating an hourly wage somewhere else. It's really, really important to diversify. I think as people buy more and more, as Expedia buys more and more. Things when Expedia bought Orbitz and Travelocity, suddenly you were back into being dependent on Expedia. So having as many different channels and many different eyeballs. We worked with recently with Home to Go and Holidoo. I think Holidoo shut down their North American office last year, but Home to Go is going great guns. Holidoo is doing great in Europe. So we do a lot of that early work. So some of the partners in the resort who don't necessarily have the teams or the time don't have to. So we find the channels that are gonna work best in local markets, and find a partner. So not really a competitor, but wouldn't advise anyone just to be on Airbnb. That's maybe an over reliance.
Perfect. And if that doesn't clarify, if you want to reach out to Ben, you can see obviously his contact information here. I do not see any more questions, and we're about at the time we were looking to keep this within. So I'll leave it here. Again, Ben's contact information is on the screen. Feel free to reach out to him with any more questions. And thanks, Ben, for your help and the time today.
Yeah, appreciate it. And looking forward to seeing people in Stowe in September.
Yeah, hope to see everybody there. Thanks, everyone.
Cheers. Bye-bye.